What's going on, guys? Tomahawk Warrior here, and guys, it's finally happened. We have our four MTG Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth Commander decks. Guys, I am so excited for this. This combines two of my favorite passions, Lord of the Rings and MTG. Specifically Commander, but I digress. Historic is fine. um, but I'm very excited for this, guys. Obviously, we do have the four Commander decks. We have the Elven Council, the hosts of Mordor, Riders of Rohan, Frodo, and the Fellowship. So I'm super excited for these. I have kept myself basically free from any spoilers. I know about Tom Bombadil, but that is actually it. So I don't even know what these commanders do. Like, I know we have these awesome, cool pictures here, but I don't know what they do. So I'm very, very excited. This is going to be so much fun. And I think that the best thing to do is just start opening these boxes. From what I hear, each one of these boxes does contain one of the packs, so there is like a 0.0002% chance that I might pull the One Ring, but probably not going to happen. However, if we got any of the other really cool cards, I'd be so down. All right, guys. So I think the first one that we should do is Riders of Rohan. I love the lore of the Rohirrim from the Second Age going forward, before they were the Rohirrim. Or no, sorry, not the second. Is it the second? Yeah, I think it's the Second Age. Besides me nerding out, this deck looks like it could be a lot of fun. White, red, blue are some incredibly powerful colors, and I'm really excited to see hopefully kind of like a night theme to this deck. Obviously, the commander for this deck is Eowyn Shield Maiden. She is a 5-cost human knight. So let's get to the unboxing. All right, so we're gonna save the box though, because I do actually save these boxes, and I do intend to put up a background with them. So when we open it, guys, like the other boxes, we do get some cool things. We have the massive card here that you could cut out and use for something, which I think I probably will at some point, because I do have the Warhammer 40k commander boxes, so maybe I'll like cut these out and use them as like a something for some point. I don't know. Also, of course, we do get two tokens here and a little thing here. I'm not really sure what this is for. I'm sure it'll be explained in the deck. And then if you fold out the side, we do get our +1/+1 counters, and I think on the other side, yeah, more +1/+1 counters. So that's super nice. If we turn it over, you'll see we have the box, the deck, and some more cool little tokens. So we'll pull up the box really quick. I can leave these open. They were kind enough to give us this little box that we could use to store the deck in, which actually I will be using because I'm actually out of deck boxes. And it does, at least look cool. We see a picture of two knights. I guess it's supposed to be Eowyn, and I don't know who that would be. It might be from the TV show. I actually haven't seen the TV show yet. And on the top, it does say Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle Earth. But that's not what we're here for. So if we pull out the deck here, sorry. Okay, so here it is. So we do get our one pack of cards. We're gonna put that aside till afterwards. So if you guys want to see if I pull the One Ring, stay tuned till then. We do get this little pamphlet that does fold out. Or sorry, it doesn't fold out. It's a little book, and it does. Oh, it does. No, it does. It was a pamphlet. Oh man, I'm losing my mind. We get a little pamphlet. Breaks out. Says Eowyn, Shield Maiden. Eowyn protects her homeland of Rohan as a skilled rider and shield maiden. At the Battle of Pelennor Fields, Eowyn demonstrated her prowess by slaying the Witch King of Angmar, Lord of the Nazgul. She met Faramir, brother of Boromir, while recovering from the battle, and the two quickly fell for one another. So, gives a little recap of it. Technically, she did have some help from Mary, but we can let that go. Also, it has a big picture of Aragorn, who I guess it was actually the other character on the top of or on the side of the deck box. I guess that's Aragorn. Aragorn, King of Gundor. Aragorn, legendary ranger of the north, is a man of many destinies. As the descendant of Isildur, Aragorn wields his ancestors' rune-forged blade and joined the Fellowship of the Ring to settle his family legacy. After the death of his father, Aragorn grew up in Rivendell, where he fell in love with Elrond's daughter, Arwen. At the end of the War of the Ring, Aragorn was crowned King of Gundor and wed Eowyn, beginning a new era of peace and prosperity. So, that is cool. Also at the bottom here, it does say something about the colors. White is order, blue is knowledge, black is power, red is emotions, and green is nature. Obviously, break it down a little bit further. White, order, cooperation, protection. Blue, knowledge, control, perfection. Black, power, death, ambition. Red, emotion, chaos, rebellion. And green is nature, instinct, and community. So, why are Eowyn and Aragorn blue, red, and white? Eowyn and Aragorn represent their respective kingdoms of Rohan and Gundor, while the White Alliance sense of honor, duty, and utility against evil. Gundor's reverence in the ancient wisdoms is blue aligned, while Rohan's passion for combat and deadly martial skill are red aligned. Okay, that's pretty cool. Do you like that they're giving us quite a bit of fluff? Oh my god, there's more. Look at that. That is some cool art that we have there. Showing Edoras. You can see the fortress citadel kind of at the top, and you see the town down here, which I think is awesome. So, playing the deck, 4th LRS, the forces of Gundor and Rohan have forged an enduring alliance. This deck overpowers opponents with the sheer size of its armies. Muster a huge force of human soldiers and knights, and then charge into battle. Claim the crown of Gundor to draw more cards and replenish your losses the army suffers. Okay, so it sounds like it's going to be a pretty aggro deck. I'm pretty happy with that. And then here it just lists the commander rules, which I won't go over now because, yeah, you can look those up at your own time, and I want to get into the deck. So here we have our nicely sleeved deck. Oh, before we do that, actually, there is one other thing. We do, in all these commander things, they do give you a little spin wheel that has your life counter on it, which I think is pretty cool. It is kind of annoying that it goes from 40 on this side to 21, and then once you go below 20, you do have to flip it, which I guess is cool that they gave little art on it. But yeah, I think it's a little bit easier just to use a phone, sadly. But if you don't have access to a phone, or I mean, there's no harm in using these little life counters. But then looking at our deck, we have deck here. So it's a 100-card deck. Has all the lands that we will need. Maybe at some point I will make some videos about what you could incorporate into this deck to make it better. However, like with my Warhammer 40k decks, I actually refuse to add any cards to them, and I just leave them as is. Is I think that the theme that they were built with is something that I want to preserve. So in the future, I will not be adding anything to these decks either, and I'll just be using them as super cool fun decks that were pre-made. So just gotta open the deck here real quick. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the deck here. So obviously we have our commander, Eowyn Shield Maiden. She is a 5-cost, 5/4 human knight with first strike. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if another human entered the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 2/2 red human knight creature token with trample and haste. Then if you control 6 or more humans, draw a card. So you can see the way that this deck has been built with her as your commander. Amassing a lot of humans that will allow you to then draw cards with this commander on the field, which is pretty good. A 5/4 is nothing to sneeze at, especially with having first strike. That is awesome. It's just that 5 cost is going to be kind of expensive, so hopefully we do have some good ram cards in this deck. If not, definitely going to be more of a mid-tier deck, which is not a bad thing. I do love commanders that do help you replenish your resources as you use them, so that I don't have to spend additional deck slots in order to put things like draw cards in it. However, that being said, you know, blue, it does very well at drawing cards. Red can do well at drawing cards with stuff like Faithless Looting and Thrill of Possibility. So we will see if what this deck does have. However, one of the cool things with all of these decks is that they don't just give you one commander, they do actually give you 2. So this is the other commander, Aragorn, King of Gundor. He is a 4-cost, 4/4 human noble with vigilance and lifelink. When Aragorn, King of Gundor, enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. Pretty cool. Whenever Aragorn attacks, up to 1 target creature can't block this turn. If you're the monarch, creatures can't block this turn. So that's really cool. So that's like a game ending kind of card. For those of you that aren't aware of what the Monarch is, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If a creature deals combat damage to you, its controller becomes the Monarch. So it's not hard to get the Monarch, and then if it is taken from you eventually, to get it back. So I think that this is a really cool card that I'd be kind of excited to use. So you can see Aragorn in like all of his splendor in this card. You can see those little white spots on the card. Just this card is definitely taken during his coronation as he's crowned king. The white probably being like flower petals that have been thrown by the crowd in order to praise their king. But other than that, a 4/4 for 4 cost is not bad. With vigilance and lifelink is awesome. And then the ability to allow your cards to get through to your opponent is super, super good. So again, another really, really cool commander that you could definitely build a deck around. I think both of these commanders actually are very, very cool. And actually, I think they both actually do work fairly well together, as both of them can play off each other fairly well. The only thing being that you're going to need a lot of mana to get these cards out. Obviously, Aragorn's going to hit the field first, and then Eowyn. I almost would have preferred if these two cards were partnered, but it does make sense lore-wise why they're not. So, going into the deck, I think we'll just kind of run through it. So, first card we have is Legend of the Lost, a 2-cost instant, double white. Put target non-land historic permanent into its owner's library from the top. Remove something from the field and then puts it into your opponent's deck. Obviously, it's not as good as exiling it, but putting it into your opponent's deck can actually be better if you just don't want to deal with that card at that time. Next, we have Eric Brand, Lord of the Westfold. He is a 4-cost 3/3 human soldier. When this card or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+0 until the end of turn. So super good. Helps buff up our knights that we're going to be making, either with Eowyn's ability or hopefully with some of these other cards that will create knights when they enter the battlefield. Next, we have a new art, Banishing Light. It is a 3-cost enchantment. When this card enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until this card leaves the battlefield. So, super good card that we've seen throughout the history of Magic being used. Stacks players love this card, and I hate it. However, the art on it is super cool. It is a little hard to see what this card is trying to do, so I will explain. Here you do have a horse with a Knight of Rohan riding it, and he has a sword which is catching the light here. So when you see this card in person, it looks incredibly amazing. So I'll bring this up so you guys can see it. I think that's a better picture of it, but yeah, that is an awesome reimagining of the card. You can see that this is during the Battle of Mordor when the armies of the West are sieging Mordor. You can see the Black Gate behind them. So it's a super, super cool card. Next, we have Fiend Hunter. It is a 3-cost 1/3 human cleric. When Fiend Hunter enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature. When Fiend Hunter leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So that's pretty good. The ability to put in a creature onto your field, giving you an attacker or a blocker in the following combat. But also this card exiling 1 card from the battlefield. Now, it doesn't just have to be your opponent's card, even though that's really good. It could exile one of your cards that has been imprisoned or is currently has some sort of negative effect going on it. So you banish that card, the effects of that card fall off, and then you get rid of this card at some point or use it to block with, or however it dies. When this card dies, it brings your own card back in free of those restraints. So good card for the deck to have, and a 3-cost card to get rid of something. Not terrible. Obviously, not every card can be a 1-cost Swords to Plowshare, but we can wish. Next, we have Palace Jailer. It is a 4-cost 2/2 human soldier. When Palace Jailer enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Awesome. Another way to get back the Monarch. When Palace Jailer enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until your opponent becomes the Monarch. Ooh, this is interesting. We're seeing a bit of a jail theme with this deck, which is pretty cool. This card is kind of interesting because I love the ability to get rid of anything that my opponent has. However, when they become the Monarch, they get that card back. That's a little bit scarier because it's easy to get damage into you as a player with things that are either unblockable, with flying, or with just having multiple cards that you can't block them all. However, still a cool card. Is a little pricey for 4, only being a 2/2, but you know it does jail, which is nice. You just have to remind yourself that yeah, make sure you keep the Monarch if you need to keep that card exile. Hey, speaking of really cheap jail cards, next we have Path to Exile. It is a 1-cost instant. Exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So super cool. Yeah, man, that is some art right there. That is a rider on a horse in a very looks like a rainy day. Okay, so it's not just a rider in the rain. This is actually depicting when Grima Wormtongue is being kicked out of Rohan. You can see him on his pony leaving. So that's cool. And you can see Edoras back there in the background. So that's cool. I do like I actually like this card more and more the more I'm looking at it. That it's called Path to Exile. It shows Grima Wormtongue being exiled from Rohan, specifically Edoras. And then, you know, it being Path to Exile, which is literally get rid of something that your opponent controls. Next, we have Sunset Rivalry. It is a 2-cost sorcery. If an opponent has more life than you, you gain 4 life. If an opponent controls more creatures than you do, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. If an opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw a card. So super good for 2. Wow, this is a really good card. If your opponent has more life, you gain life. If they have more creatures, you get a creature. And if they have more cards, you get to draw a card. This is cheap enough that it can affect multiple stages of the game. If you need creatures on the battlefield to use with your commanders, great. If you need card draw, it draws. And then worst case scenario, if you're about to die due to something, you could use this card, play it at source, use speed, gain 4 life, and maybe not die. Normally, you'd probably never going to use that gain 4 life unless it's absolutely dire. You're going to be using this card to generate yourself a token or to draw a card. In my mind, I'm always going to be playing this to draw a card. But however, I do like the art of it. You know, it is some sort of a celebration that we're seeing. I did look at the card. I wasn't able to distinguish any like clear faces. Perhaps if you guys in the comments see something I'm missing, let me know. Oh my goodness, that is awesome. Next, we have Swords to Plowshare. It is a 1-cost instant exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Swords to Plowshare is an incredibly powerful card, probably the strongest card that White has ever had access to. So really, really awesome to see it in this deck with the Lord of the Rings theme. Oh no. Oh, we got Village Bellringer as our next card. It is a 3-cost 1/4 human scout with flash. When Village Bellringer enters the battlefield, untap all creatures you control. So super powerful card. This card having flash is incredible because you can use your creatures to attack. They tap, your opponent goes to swing, you play this card, flash, all your creatures untap, and all of a sudden your opponent's like, oh crow, am I just gonna lose my whole board? You know, it forces them to react. You know, it catches people off guard. This card in Chulane deck specifically is a win condition with I forget what other card it is, but yeah, super good card. 3 costs for 1/4 with flash. I'm not complaining. The effect on this card is incredibly strong though. So I love the art of this card too because it shows a messenger of Rohan. And the text of it says, the enemy is at hand. We loosed every arrow that we had and filled the dike with orcs, but it will not halt them for long. Love it. Love the text on this. Love the art. Oh, this is a cool card. Next, we have a legendary creature, Prince Imrak the Fair. He is a 2-cost 2/2 human noble. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So, super good if this deck has a ton of card draw. We've already seen multiple ways to draw cards with the Monarch and then with that one sorcery spell. And this works really well with Eowyn being your commander. As she did say, it just has to be a human that enters the battlefield. It didn't say it had to be a non-creature token. So whenever you're drawing cards, this card is putting another human on the battlefield. If you're able to plunk this card down and draw a card, he will trigger, creating a human token, which will then trigger Eowyn in the combat phase to make another knight. So you can definitely see how this deck is trying to play itself. You know, it has prison and then has some draw in order to get a bunch of knights. Now all we need to see in this deck is some sort of card that's going to buff up these creatures from 1/1s to 2/2s, 3/3s, 4/4s. Next, we have Humble Defector. It is a 2-cost, 2/1 human rogue. Tap. Draw 2 cards. Target opponent gains control of this card. Activate only during your turn. Ooh, that is kind of risky, but super strong. It's a 2-cost to play a human rogue, which will trigger your commander. Tap, draw 2 cards, which will trigger the card that we just talked about. However, then giving it to your opponent can be kind of risky. However, if you have some way to deal with it by killing this card, I'd recommend doing it so they don't get that draw, because drawing 2 cards is incredibly strong. However, in a 4v4 format, you could partner with one of your opponents and say, I will tap this, and then I will give it to you, because it does say target opponent, so you get to target and say, you can have this, you can use it, and then give it back, and use this to bounce between you and your opponent in order for you both to draw cards. Super strong, super good, and a pretty good way to politic the game in order to get the board state more into your favor. Super, super good card. I like the art of it, showing someone that's basically been captured. Hey, look at this. Next we have Theoden, King of Rohan. He is a 3-cost, 2/3 human noble. When this card or another human enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gains double strike into the end turn. That is really cool. Pairs really well with this deck, giving either Aragorn, Eowyn, or whatever other knight cards that we haven't seen yet in the deck double strike. That's super cool. And it doesn't say that it's non-token, so this will trigger with our tokens that we're creating. And I love the flavor text that they've chosen for this card. It says, dark have my dreams been of late, but I feel newly awakened. I only fear that already you have come too late, Gandalf. So this card speaks to when he was freed by Gandalf from the control of Sauron via Wormtongue. Super, super cool moment in the books and in the movie. You get to see that super awesome Gandalf flex of power. So this is an awesome card that this is what they've chosen to represent on this card. I love it. One of my favorite moments from the movies. Oh, this is so cool. Next, we have Arcane Signet. So I was talking earlier about some mana ramp. We do get Arcane Signet, which is awesome. Obviously, this card does say tap, add 1 color to your mana pool from your commander's color identity. However, I'm just so blown away by this art. That looks so cool. Its text says, magic rings are, well, magical, and they are rare and curious. I believe that it's a quote that comes from when Gandalf was speaking to Bilbo Baggins after his party. Might be wrong. However, I think that looks so, so, so cool. Oh, that's an awesome card. Oh my goodness, look at this. Next we get Command Sphere. It is a 3-cost artifact. Tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. You can sacrifice this card to draw a card. So this is the Palantir, if I am correct. That's super cool. This card's card text says, the Naldor, perhaps Feanor himself, brought the Palantir in days so long ago that time cannot be measured in years. So that's cool. Speaking of the history of the Palantir, super cool. Love the art, by the way. That is so cool, showing the I believe that's the eye. It's not the eye. It's showing a face. I believe that's supposed to be Sauron. But regardless, that is super cool. Oh, this is really cool. We get Heirloom Blade. That's awesome. This is a 3-cost artifact. A creep creature gets +3/+1. When a creep creature dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it. It does cost 1 to equip, but this is a super fun card because it kind of helps you recuperate from loss. So you equip this to a creature, and then when that creature does die, it reveals cards until it finds a creature card that shared a creature type. So in this case, it'll be knights, and then puts that card to your hand. So you get another creature from your deck to your hand. Now, granted, it might not be the best one, but at least it replenishes itself. So when that card dies on the field, it pulls something from the deck, which is nice. Oh, wow, look at this. Next, we have Herald's Horn. It is a 3-cost artifact. As this card enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of chosen creature type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. This card has so many utilities. It makes your whole deck cheaper to cast, which makes sense considering our commanders are so expensive. Well, Aragorn's not, but Eowyn is. But also, it helps you to not draw things you don't want to draw. So when it's your turn, you reveal the top card, you pick up the top card of your library. If it's a human, you get to show it to your opponent, put it in your hand. So it means that you don't draw that card if you're looking for a sorcery, a land, an instant, what have you. Super, super helpful card. Let's go. We get Soul Ring. That is so cool. So that Soul Ring is a 1-cost artifact. Tap, add 2 colorless mana. So one of the most broken cards in the game. I'm not really sure why they went with this card art specifically, but that's awesome. So this card is showing Sauron with the 1 ring. That's awesome. This card text reads, in the Second Age, Sauron was not yet evil to behold, and the elven smiths of Eldaron received his aid and grew mighty in craft, whereas he learned all their secrets and betrayed them, and forged secretly in the mountain of fire the 1 ring to be their master. Look at that. That is so cool. That art is amazing. Like I said, I don't know why they chose this art, but oh my goodness. Super, super cool, dude. That is so much flavor text. That is so much lore and an amazing piece of card art to boot. Oh my goodness, I love it. Like I said, I don't understand why though. That's the card, the Soul Ring that they gave to Eowyn and Aragorn's deck, but I digress. Oh, this is so cool. Next we get Talisman of Conviction. It is a 2-cost artifact. Tap, add colorless, or you can add red or white. It does deal 1 damage to you, which is not bad at all. But what's cool about this card is its card text, which says, Faramir and Eowyn stood forth and set hand in hand, and all there drank to them and were glad. So it speaks about Faramir and Eowyn being, you know, together, which is super cool. But yeah, back to Magic. This card, super decent. 2-cost artifact that will 2-cost artifact that gives you colorless, or it gives you colored for 1 damage, which is not a hard price to pay. This is cool. Okay, that's actually really, really cool. Next, we have Talisman of Progress. It is a 2-cost artifact. Tap, add colorless, or you can add white or blue. It does deal 1 damage to you. But what this card art what this card art shows is the Tree of Gundor. And its card text says, thus is the friendship of Mark and Gundor bound with a new bond, and the more I do rejoice, Eomer. So this is actually really cool, and it kind of explains why I was kind of confused, and now I understand it. So this is Faramir with the Rohirrim, and then this is Eowyn with the Tree of Gundor, signifying their bond of bringing the 2 kingdoms together, and also those 2 being together romantically. That's so cool that they would think of that to include these 2 cards and to make this. I mean, I kind of want to play a game now, get these 2 cards and just have them there, even if I don't win the game, just to have them side by side. I think that'd be so cool. Oh, that's cool. We have Thought Vessel. It is a 2-cost artifact. You have no maximum hand size. Tap, add 1 colorless mana. So this is cool because it shows Gandalf when he's looking for information on the 1 ring to try to figure out if Bilbo's ring is the 1 ring. When he's searching in the depths of the library in Gundor. So the card text does read, grudgingly, Lord Denethor permitted me to search among his hoarded scrolls and books. Gandalf. That's so cool. It makes sense. You know, you have no max size because you're gaining knowledge. He's looking for knowledge. Awesome. Oh, that's cool. Next, we have Wayfarer's Bauble. It is a 1-cost artifact. Pay 2, sacrifice Wayfarer's Bauble. Search a library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Good card. We can all thank Mitch over at the Commander's Quarter for driving this card's price up. But what's cool is what this card is showing. This is what truly makes this card, specifically this card, special. And the text of this card is possibly some of the most famous text from the Lord of the Rings. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. So, one of the most probably well-known quotes from the Lord of the Rings being, not all those who wander are lost. So that's so cool that they put this on Wayfarer's Bauble, because it just makes sense, right? When you use it like a compass, it's a card to search for a land, because you, on the surface, right, you pay this card, it doesn't do anything. You have to sacrifice mana in order to go get a land, but it's setting up a play, which is beautifully encapsulated by this card art. Oh my goodness, that's so cool. Next we have Baragon the Guard. He is a 4-cost, 3/3 legendary creature. When this card or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 and vigilance until the end of turn. Let's go, guys! So when he comes in, he buffs them, and then whenever any of our other cards that create tokens or we play another creature, it's going to buff up our tokens, our little token army that we have. So that's super cool. That is a great card for this deck. Next, we have Champions of MiddleEarth. It is a 6-cost, 4/6 human soldier. When Champions of MiddleEarth enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. Amazing. At the beginning of combat on each opponent's turn, if you are the monarch, that opponent may pay X, where X is the number of cards in their hand. If they don't, they can't attack this combat. So that is incredibly powerful, guys. And I really do like the card out here. It is like Aragorn. It shows the celebration after the fall of Sauron, and the card, the flavor text does actually show that, where it says, "The realm of Sauron is ended forever." Next we have Galadrin, Dunedain Protector. She is a 3-cost, 2/3 human noble. Pay 2, tap, exile target creature you control. You may return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If you don't, at the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a vigilance and a lifelink counter on it. So that's super cool. So this is kind of a utility card. Next we have the Grey Host Reinforcements. It is a 4-cost, 1/1 Spirit Soldier, flying, ward 3. What? That's so cool. When the Grey Host Reinforcements enter the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on Grey Host Reinforcements equal to the number of creatures exiled this way. Oh boy, that's so cool. So it kind of works like a not as good Bajuga Bog, but still not terrible. It being a 1/1 with flying, ward 3 is surprisingly strong, which makes sense because this card gets big quickly. Ideally, you hold this card till after there's been, a couple rounds of combat, a lot of stuff's died. You throw this card down, it becomes is big. Next, we have LOTR Captain. It is a 4-cost, 3/1 human soldier with first strike. Whenever this card or another human enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white human soldier token. Surprisingly strong for just a random card in the deck, but I'll take it. So helps us control our opponent's big scary creatures, and then creates human soldier tokens, which is great because it works with our commanders. So that's a fun card. It does make sense, a 3/1, so it's not just an absolute boss card. Next we have Activist of Gundor. It is a 3-cost, 2/3 human advisor. When your commanders dealt combat damage to a player, if there is no monarch, you become the monarch. At the beginning of the monarch's end step, that player draws a card. Ideally, you play this card before you play any other monarch cards. You're the monarch, you draw cards, and then whenever you're gaining monarch triggers with your other cards, basically, you're getting double card draw at the end of the turn, so super cool. Next, we have Denethor, Stoneseer. He is a 2-cost, 1/3 human noble. When this card enters the battlefield, scry 2. You may pay 4, sacrifice this card, target player becomes a monarch. Denethor deals 3 damage to any target. This card also does show Denethor using the Palantir and being corrupted by Sauron. It reads, "You may triumph on the field for a day, but against the powers that arise there is no victory." So it speaks to when Gandalf visits Gundor with Merry in order to keep him out of the clutches of basically Mordor after after Pippin looks into the Palantir, and they meet Denethor, who's in the midst of slightly being corrupted and going through the grieving process of losing Boromir. Next we have Fealty to the Realm. It is a 4-cost enchantment aura, enchant creature. When this card enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. The monarch controls enchanted creature. Enchanted creature attacks each combat if able and can't attack you. So that's cool. So what this card does is it allows you to steal one of your opponent's creatures. It makes you the monarch, and then it does force that creature to attack. However, because it says the monarch controls it, so if your opponents gain the monarch, basically you can have a card start switching hands pretty quickly. Yay! Next we have Call for Aid. It is a 4-cost sorcery. Gain control of all creatures target opponent controls until the end of the turn. What? Untap those creatures. They gain haste until the end of the turn. You can't attack that player this turn. You can't sacrifice those creatures this turn. So, makes a lot of sense because you're stealing your opponent's board and then you have to swing them all at a different opponent rather than the opponent that you just stole from, which makes sense. But that's cool. I do like that this card says you can't sacrifice them, so you can't just steal your opponent's board and sack them all into different things. I do like the art that's chosen. This is showing the lighting of the beacons. Basically, when Gandalf sends Merry to light the beacons, call for Rohan's aid because Denethor didn't want to. Oh, nice. Next, we have Gimli of the Glittering Caves. He is a 3-cost 1/1 legendary dwarf warrior with double strike. When another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Gimli of the Glittering Caves. Whenever Gimli deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Oh boy. There we have it. So super cool card. The ability to gain +1/+1 counters and then create treasures, awesome. Will definitely help offset Eowyn's expensive price cost, especially when she inevitably dies. He only needs 2 or 3 legendary creatures to hit the field, and he is a 4/4 double strike dwarf that creates treasure tokens. That's incredible. This card has a lot of potential to get really big really quick. Next, we have Boromir, Gundor's Hope. That's cool. So that is a Boromir is a 4-cost 3/4 human warrior. When Boromir, Gundor's Hope, enters the battlefield or attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a human or artifact card from among them, put it into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. So super good. Helps us search through our decks, top 6 cards. We either get a human that we need, or we get some sort of mana rock that we need, and puts it into our hand. The rest go to the bottom of the library, whatever. But that's super cool. 4 cost for 3/4 isn't the best, but his effect definitely makes up for it. It's the card text says, "Long have I wandered by roads forgotten, seeking the house of Elrond." So this speaks to a time period when hobbits are trying to get to Rivendell. Boromir has been sent to Rivendell and is currently searching the woods. And basically, when he shows up at the White Counts or at Elrond's house, finally, for the meeting that takes place to decide the fate of the One Ring, he's basically like, "Yeah, I was lost. I lost my horse, and I just been kind of wandering around the woods for a while." So super cool. I like that this is the Boromir that we got in this deck. Hopefully, we get maybe younger Boromir at some point, but that's super cool, man. I like that. Yo, look at this. Next we got Aragorn, King of Rohan. So he is a 5-cost 2/2 human noble with double strike. When this card enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each other human you control. Okay, now it makes sense. When this card enters the battlefield, target player becomes a monarch. Aragorn deals damage equal to its power to any target. Oh my goodness. Okay. As your board grows, you have this card. You wait until the opportune moment. You cast it. He gets super big, and then he says, "Hey, I'm super big," and just slaps one card that your opponents control, which is awesome. Also, he gives you the monarch, so he's gonna get big quick, and then has double strike on top of it. Man, this guy is a game ender. I'd love to see him come down as like a 20/20 and just look at your opponents and be like, "All right, who am I sending to the Shadow Realm first? Let's go." That's awesome. Next, we have Faramir, Steward of Gundor. He is a 3-cost 2/2 human noble. Whenever a legendary creature with mana value 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your end step, if you are the monarch, create 2 1/1 white human soldier tokens. Either he helps you regain the monarch, or for being the monarch, you get a bunch of 1/1 human soldier tokens. That's awesome. Works so well with this deck, man. This deck is so awesomely built together. Just creating this army of soldiers. And soldier tokens, obviously, but that's cool, man. I like for Elras. It is a X plus red white sorcery. Create X 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Whenever one or more creatures you control and deals combat damage to one or more players this turn, you become the monarch. Next we have Oath of, I don't know how to pronounce that. So sorry. It is a 5-cost saga. For its first one, create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. It's level 2. Create 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Hell yeah. And then 3. Put an indestructible counter on one target human. You become the monarch. Oh my goodness. Another way to gain monarch, and it protects our commanders and or cool cards that we have. Gimli. That's awesome. It does suck though that this card is so expensive. 5 mana for a saga that's gonna take a turn to really get useful. Does suck, but I'm not complaining. That's actually pretty good. You know, in the mid game where you've got some knights and blockers to defend yourself, this card could be really, really impactful. Speaking of awesome horsemen, next we have Riders of Rohan. It is a 5-cost 4/4 human knight. When Riders of Rohan enters the battlefield, create 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. It has dash for 6. You may cast a spell for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste, and it returns from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Next, we have Taunt from the Ramparts. It is a 5-cost sorcery. Goad all creatures your opponents controlled. Until your next turn, those creatures can't block. So what Goad does is, until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. So super good. So this forces your opponent's Horde of Mordor, ideally. They have to attack, but they can't attack you, and they have to go for someone else. That's awesome. So it helps deal with, your opponent that's getting big and throw them at someone that's not you. But then you look at this card and it's awesome. The Taunt from the Ramparts, you're thinking like, okay, is it talking about, during the siege of Minas Tirith? But it's actually talking about the Battle of the Hornburg. As the card text reads, is it not said that no foe has ever taken the Hornburg if men defend it? Aragorn. So it speaks to the ending of the Battle of the Hornburg, where the forces of Rohan have been besieged by the forces of Isengard. They're being pushed back. Theoden's basically lost hope, and Aragorn basically says to him, if you still have men alive, we are going to defend this. Lead us into battle, if necessary, to our deaths. And then as they, are defending on the walls, the second force of Rohan arrives and saves the day. So super cool card, a super awesome moment of the films to remember with this card. Next, we have Crown of Gundor. It is a 3-cost legendary artifact. It's an equipment card. A creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. Oh my goodness, this is amazing already. When a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, if there is no monarch, you become the monarch. It does have equip 4. This ability costs 3 less to activate if you're the monarch. Oh my goodness. So this is a 4-cost equipment that will make your card, ideally either Eowyn or Aragorn or Gimli or some big creature, just become even bigger as long as you have a massive creatures. So that's a cool card. It basically allows Aragorn to one-shot your opponents if you have enough cards on the field. Next, we have Bastion Protector. It is a 3-cost 3/3 human soldier. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible. Next, we have Dearly Departed. It is a 6-cost 5/5 spirit with flying. As long as Dearly Departed is in your graveyard, each human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. The problems that I'd seen with this deck is everything was creating 1/1 creature tokens, except for the Rohirrim cards that were creating 2/2s. But this makes them now 2/2s and 3/3s with haste, trample, whatever. Only problem is going to be getting this card in the graveyard. Next, we have Frontline Medic. It is a 3-cost 3/3 human cleric with Bastion. Whenever Frontline Medic and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of turn. Sacrifice Frontline Medic, counter target spell with X in its mana cost unless its controller pays 3. So this card is super cool for a couple of reasons, because it doesn't say that it just gives one card. It says as long as you're attacking with at least 2 other cards and this card, all creatures you control get indestructible to the end of turn. So this is great. It allows you to punch with everything that you have, even if your opponent has a board of scary things that you normally not want to go into. Next, we have Increasing Devotion. It is a 3-cost sorcery. Create 5 1/1 white human creature tokens. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, create 10 of those tokens instead, and it has flashback for 9. Super cool. For this deck, it's fine, I think. It is kind of expensive, but it is 5 tokens. And then the ability for 2 turns later to make 10 tokens on top of the 5 that you already made. It's kind of strong. Next, we have Marshal's Anthem. It is a 3-cost enchantment. Multi-kicker, 1 and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+1. When this card enters the battlefield, return up to X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of times this card was kicked. Super cool. So we're already paying 5 mana for cards like Icon of Ancestry to give our creatures +1/+1, but then the multi-kicker on this card allowing us to not just get cards back to our hand, but putting them back on the battlefield is incredible. So this is a super, super strong card. It will get expensive if you want to bring back a ton of cards, but I mean, if you have the mana, super good. This is definitely a super mid-game card where you have some mana to bring back some things that have been killed that are pretty important, like Aragorn or Eowyn or Gimli. And then late game, if your board's just been blown up, someone hit a massive board wipe, you have the ability then to pay a bunch of mana into this and bring back specific, very specific, very important cards from your graveyard, and then just say, yeah, I just reestablished my board. What of it? Next, we have Selfless Squire. It is a 4-cost 1/1 human soldier with flash. When this card enters the battlefield, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. Whenever damage that would be dealt to you is prevented, you may put that many +1/+1 counters on this card. Oh my goodness. Stop printing cards like this, wizard. I digress. So this is a super fun card. Cost 4, which is expensive. However, if your opponent swings at you with a massive horde of goblin tokens, orcs, I guess, you flash in this card, prevent it, and then you just get a massive beat stick that then looks at your opponent. And I like that it's in this deck where, stuff is pretty expensive. If you get hit with a board wipe, you're basically crying for a turn. This card does give you, some hope that if you have it in your hand, you can survive a turn if you have the mana open. Or if, you top deck and you don't draw anything, you have an option, of something to with your mana that you do have on the field. Next, we have Unbreakable Formation. It is a 3-cost instant. Creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of turn. If you cast this card during your main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain Vigilance until the end of turn. Next, we have Verge Rangers. It is a 3-cost 3/3 human scout ranger with first strike. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. As long as your opponent controls more lands than you, you may play lands from the top of your library. Hell yeah. So that's super good. We have other cards like this that do exist in green. So having this in white is awesome. Next, we have Visions of Glory. It is a 5-cost sorcery. Create a 1/1 white human creature token for each creature you control. This card does have flashback for 10. The spell costs X less to cast this way, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. Next, we have Weathered Wayfinder. It is a 1-cost 1/1 human nomad cleric. You may pay a white, tap, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Next, we have Combat Celebrant. It is a 3-cost 4/1 human warrior. If this card hasn't been exerted this turn, you may exert it as it attacks. When you do, untap all other creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Super good. Game finisher. What you're going to do is you're going to basically exert this card as you swing. You're going to swing with everything. After that, there's an additional combat phase. You swing again. You either kill your last opponent or you kill whatever opponent is just trying to kill you. Next, we have Court of Ire. It is a 4-cost enchantment. When this card enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, Court of Ire deals 2 damage to any target. If you're the monarch, it deals 7 damage instead. So it gives you basic on-the-spot removal of problematic cards. Karn only comes in with 4 loyalty, if I remember correctly. Nis only comes in with 4 loyalty. Ashiok only comes in with 5 loyalty. So this card is just going to basically go pew 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 and blow up whatever your opponent has that's scary. So that's a super cool card to have. Kind of odd that it's in this deck, but I do appreciate that it's giving us some defensive options to go along with our heavily offensive deck that we have. Next, we have Earthquake. It is a X1 red sorcery. Earthquake deals X damage to each creature without flying and to each player. This is our, I guess, pseudo board wipe that we have for the deck. You do have to pay a decent amount of mana in it to get it to do what you want because it deals damage. It's not per mana value and it doesn't just kill stuff like Wrath of Gods or Damnation does. But it can be slightly better because it does do damage to your opponent as well. So it will blow up the board and deal some damage to your opponents, which is nice. However, it does also hit you, which kind of can be problematic. Next, we have Flame Rush Rider. It is a 5-cost 3/3 human warrior. When this card attacks, create a token that's a copy of another card attacking. Next, we have Flame Rush Rider. It is a 5-cost 3/3 human warrior. Whenever this card attacks, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature that is tapped and attacking. Exile the token at the end of combat. You may pay dash for 4. You may cast this card for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste and returns from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Next, we have Frontier Warmonger. It is a 4-cost 4/4 human warrior. Whenever one or more creatures attacks one of your opponents or planeswalker they control, those creatures gain menace until the end of turn. So that's cool. Menace, you have to block with 2 creatures instead of 1. Next, we have Harsh Mentor. It is a 2-cost 2/2 human cleric. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it isn't a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. Next, we have Shared Animosity. It is a 3-cost enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attack, it gets +1/+0 until the end of turn for each other creature attacking that shares a creature type with it. We have a bunch of 1/1s, not that scary. Now as they all attack, they actually start buffing each other, which is nice. It does make them a bit more scary. Next, we have Zealous Conscripts. It is a 5-cost 3/3 human warrior with haste. When Zealous Conscripts enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until the end of turn. Untap that permanent, it gains haste until the end of turn. So super nice. You play this card, steals one of your opponent's creatures, and then you basically hit your opponent with it. Hey! Next we have Supreme Verdict. It is a 4-cost sorcery. The spell can't be countered. Destroy all creatures. There we go. So we get a second board wipe that's not Earthquake. That isn't going to, require us to put a bunch of mana into it. But to tie into the theme of Supreme Verdict, the card reads, there rose a huge shape of shadow, impenetrable, lightning crowned, filling all the sky. Enormous it reared above the world, terrible but impotent. For even as it leaned over, a great wind took it, and it was blown away. So this speaks to after the One Ring is destroyed and Sauron is banished from Middle-earth. Basically his spirit arises to look over the fields of Mordor, and then it's blown away by the wind, just signaling kind of the end of the reign of Sauron and his absolute tyranny over Middle-earth. Super cool flavor text. Like I said, I'm not really sure what the card art's trying to show, because it shows like one guy here, another guy with an axe, and then a ray of light. It could be, just showing like the dissipation of the war. Not really sure, but I do like it in the deck, and the card art, regardless, looks super cool. Hell yes! Next, we have Door of Destinies, a 4-cost artifact. As Door of Destiny enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on Door of Destinies. Creature control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies. So yes, we got something that's gonna buff up over time. That's awesome. Next we got Vanquishing Banner. Hell yeah. It is a 5-cost artifact. As Vanquishing Banner enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. So this is what I was talking about by cards that are going to buff our deck. I was thinking, Icon of Ancestry, Vanquishing Banner. So we've now got one of the cards that I was really hoping to see in Vanquishing Banner, because unlike some of the other cards, Vanquishing Banner, whenever we cast a creature card of the chosen type, we do get to draw, which helps us replenish our hand as we play the game. And then finally, we do get onto the land, guys. So I'll kind of do this a little bit of rapid fire. I'll try to show off the ones that I think are really cool. So the first one, speaking of which, is Command Tower. So we all know what Command Tower does, but it's art that I love, guys. It shows the towers of Minas Tirith. Is just showing, Minas Tirith and how amazing it looks. You see those white towers. This middle tower is the one of which Denethor does jump off when he's on fire and does plummet to his doom. Rip. It's an incredibly cool card to have, and it makes a lot of sense. Edoras doesn't have anything really similar to it, so I'm glad that they decided to make Minas Tirith the Command Tower card for this deck. I think it fits thematically, and that's just such a cool card to have in this deck. Next, we have our really cool art, Evolving Wilds. We all know what Evolving Wilds does. I just think this is really cool. The card text does read, when winter first begins to bite, and stones crack in the frosty night, when pools are black and trees are bare, 'tis evil in the wild to fare. So this is an awesome card. This is a reference to when the Fellowship is leaving, Bilbo Baggins basically recites this bit of a poem to Frodo Baggins as the ring goes south. Super thematic card, beautifully done here. Next we have Field of Ruin. It is a land card, tap to add colorless. You can pay to sacrifice Field of Ruin to destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card and puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles. So Path of Ancestry here looks amazing. The card text says, Mary gazed at the pupil men with wonder and pity as they loomed up mournfully in the dark. So super cool. It shows the statues throughout the card, and then I think that's supposed to be Aragorn on the horse there, but that's just a really cool card that was added to this, and I'm really happy we got Path of Ancestry in this deck. Next, that's awesome. We got Rogue's Passage. Rogue's Passage, we all know what it does, but I like that it does show Frodo's house, and kind of makes sense as Bilbo's making his escape, kind of like a rogue. The card text does speak to this, saying, I'm leaving for some time where I can finish my book. Perhaps I have thought of a nice ending for it. and he lived happily ever after to the end of his days. So the card is referencing when Bilbo basically leaves Frodo everything before he leaves the ring in the Shire and sets out to go to Rivendell to spend the remainder of his time for most of the Lord of the Rings movies. Super fun card to have. I'm glad that they gave us Rogue's Passes too, even though I think it might have been a little overkill in the deck, as I don't know if we're going to use this card, but I like that it's here and it's represented by this card art. Next, we have Secluded Courtyard. Super awesome to look at. It's showing Aragorn and Eowyn. Terramorphic Expanse is the next card that we have. It's nice that they're giving us some fetch lands in the deck, you know, help us fix our very specific mana that some of our cards do have. And then as we go on, we got, oh wow, we got some cool cards here. We got Battlefield Forge. We got Cliff Tops of Retreat. We got Fury Calm Snarl. And we got our Windscarred. That's really cool. We got our damage land. We got our land that enters tapped if we don't control. We got our land that we have to reveal for. And then we got our life land. So that's really cool that they're giving us. Next we have Glacial Fortress, Port Town, Prairie Stream, and Tranquil Cove as our blue-white land. That is pretty nice. The Port Town, pretty decent card. Glacial Fortress, pretty good as well. And, you know, gaining life with Tranquil Cove isn't bad. Prairie Stream, not bad either. I'm happy with those 3 lands that they gave us. And then finally we have our Sulphur Falls, Throne of the High City, Windbreak Heights. So Sulphur Falls, pretty decent. Throne of the High King is nice. You can pay 4, sacrifice it, you become the monarch. And then Windbrisk Heights is a hideaway 4. And then we have Exotic Orchards. I think that's a beautiful card to have, showing some of the higher points of, I believe, it looks like Rivendell, but I might be wrong. Our assortment of playing cards here, which all do have some very nice art. I'll just grab 3 of them to show you what we have. Get that. Get that. Okay, so it's actually just 2. 2 is still nice, so 2 very nice looking planes. Our assortment of islands that we have, showing, you know, a waterfall and a river, which is really nice. I don't want to say this because I don't want to sound stupid, but that looks like either the ford that they crossed after Legolas shot the Nazgul. And then we have our mountain cards. Finally, not anything really to do with the deck, but we do have our, I don't even know what these are called. They give us an extra copy of our commanders. It's thicker than a normal card. Has a holographic border around it, which is nice. And just looks, you know, nice, you know, having the dark text here. Yeah, I don't know what they're called. Sorry, guys, but it is nice to have. And then they were nice enough to include some tokens. So we do get our human knights, we get our human soldiers, and then of course we have our human knights that I'm pretty sure are Rohirrim, and they do give us multiple copies of these, which is nice. And also, these cards all have a back to them for our human tokens, as well as our human token creatures that we do have. We do get a treasure. We get 3 treasure tokens. Nice. They really expect Gimli to be doing a lot for us in this deck. Those are very cool. Also, one of them does have the monarch on the back of it, if you need to know what the monarch is, which is super cool, super awesome art on it. And then finally, with these sets, they did give us the One Ring, which I won't go into right now, but it does have its rules that it has, and then on the back of it, it does have, you know, how the One Ring does work. Also with these guys, they gave us a pack of cards, so we're gonna open these now. Like I said, there's a very, 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 very small chance that I do pull the One Ring, but we'll have to see. Maybe I get lucky, in which case I'm retiring. I just noticed, I was like, oh my god, did they give me a rip card? No, it's just the card art. Sorry. So what did we get? So we got our non full art card. We got Elrond, Master of Healing. So this is a 4-cost 4/4 elf noble. When you scry, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of cards looked at while scrying this way. Whenever creature you control with a +1/+1 counter becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. That's super good. And then the other card that we did get is Rosie Cotton of Southlane. So she is a 3-cost 1/1 halfling peasant. When Rosie enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you create a food token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. So that is super fun to have, guys. Those are 2 nice full art cards. I think they are full art. Rosie is definitely Elrond, I guess you could say isn't, because, you know, big block of text. But regardless, they do look super nice. So guys, that has been my I guess review thoughts on the Lord of the Rings Forces of Rohan deck. Stay tuned because we will be covering the other 4 decks very shortly, guys, and hopefully I will see you in those videos. Peace. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.